Hello, Mesa Verde. It's that time of year again. It's time for us to get going on our Dynasty draft. I made a couple changes to the format this year. Not really the format, just the sheet itself, which I'll go over in just a second. But first, I want to welcome in Lindsay and Eric, who are our two expansion teams. And then also Javon. Javon is taking over for Sten. So Sten communicated to me in the month of February after our expansion draft that he just has gotten too busy with his life. He's has a lot of exciting things going on, but he is not able to keep up with his dynasty team like he wants to anymore. So I invited in Javon, who is some of you may know him from playing in the redraft league. But he had expressed interest in joining this Dynasty League right at its onset. We just didn't have room for him at the time, so we're happy to have him on board. He's a good fantasy player, so I'm excited for that. And then, of course, Lindsay and Eric really know what they're doing. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with their expansion teams, not only this year and in this draft, but in the years to come. So the sheet itself looks similar to what you guys are used to. Excuse me. One thing that I eliminated off to the left-hand side there was the full list of names of all the players in the league. It took me a very long time to compile that the last couple of years, and I don't really feel like it was utilized too often. And it's also a bit redundant because we can find that information in other places. So here, of course, are your guides, your resources. If you're not sure who you want to pick or you're trying to target a certain player, you can click on these. I'm sorry, if you're trying to target a certain position, you can click on these. They have rankings by position, and you can also well, they're all here. You can just click on them as you want to. Check them out. They help me even to get ready for the draft, especially if I know I'm looking for a certain position or if there's players that I've heard about but I'm not very familiar with and I want to do some further reading on them. And, of course, you can use any other resource in your life to do that. The rostered players are all listed here. Now, you guys actually have access to this sheet. So I put our Week 18 rosters down here, but the first time this year, it's not exactly relevant because we had an expansion draft. So what I think you should do to see your team is to go to this go to this spreadsheet. Sorry, I'm a little tired today. I almost called this a website. Go to this spreadsheet and then take a look at your team. So just to review, these are the players that you chose to lock. So I'm just going to use Jesse's here as an example. So these are the players that you chose to lock and keep away from expansion exposure. And then these are the players that you chose to expose to the expansion draft. Now, if I turned the cell this like bluish gray color, that means that player is no longer part of your roster. They were chosen by either Eric or Lindsay during the expansion draft, which we did in late January. Now, if they're still in your traditional team color here, like so in Jesse's are yellow, that means that player still belongs on your team. Okay, I think that's going to be more helpful to you than it is to look at the other sheet, because some of the players listed on the other sheet are no longer on your team, and I'll show you that in just a second. But one thing about this, some of you, I'm not sure if you looked at this, but if you haven't, you might notice that not every team was impacted equally by the expansion draft, which is fine. That's sort of what we expected. So, for example, Chris might take a look at this and say, what the heck? I lost 7 players while Ryan only lost 1. What am I supposed to do? Well, a couple things. Number one, we're going to vote on whether we're going to have compensatory picks in next year's draft, not this year, but next year's draft for the teams that lost a bunch of players. Number two, I do think that there is just a little bit of expectation to come with this. I also lost a bunch of players and players that I liked, and my initial reaction was the same thing. What the heck? Why was my team picked on so much? And I'm like, oh yeah. You won the championship last year, so like of course you're going to lose players. You have a good team, those players are going to get picked in an expansion draft format, and it's going to be up to me or you, if that happened to you, as a general manager, to sort of replace those players or use, any skill I have to build my team back up from those losses. So it seemed to be that the teams that have been doing fairly well the last couple of years were stung the most in the expansion draft, and I think that's to be expected. Okay, so then going back to here, this was I did put this on here just so you can see where your players were in terms of their roster positions, like who you had starting. This is all a screenshot. Most of it is from week 18 of last year. But just want to caution you guys, because we've used this in the past as sort of a canon of who's on your team. But because of the expansion draft, not all of these players are going to still be on your team. So you certainly want to cross-reference it with the rostered player sheet, the one that I just showed you, because those are the players that are still on your team. All right, guys, so a couple things we have here. Down here is your usual picks that you could trade. So we have 2025's picks are now available. And by the way, I'm going to try to get this over to you. It's Tuesday, April 25th. I'm going to try to get all this information and this video over to you today. But I think we should start our trading tomorrow, if that's okay, because I think that people might need time to get home from work, open the email, watch this probably longer than it needs to be video, and then we'll say that tomorrow we can start, reaching out to people for trades. I also down here put the time frames for picking. So let me go back to here. If you haven't used this before, because we have 3 new people in the league, when you are ready to make a pick, so you have in the beginning rounds, you have the entire day to come up with your choice. When you're ready to make a pick, you can just type it into the cell directly. So like you just put the player's name in there of who you want to pick. And then starting the next day, it'll be Eric's turn. So if Lindsay puts this in here on Saturday, April 29th in the morning, we're still going to wait until the next day before Eric would put his in there. So you have a full day to do it in the beginning. If you don't want to access the spreadsheet, because I know we have 1 or 2 of you that they're afraid they're going to mess up the sheet if they start to change things around, you can just text me or email me who you want to pick, and I can type it in there for you. You just want to make sure you do it by the deadline. So let's take a look here. Those of you that have drafted before, you're going to be familiar with this format. So the first 2 rounds, you have 24 hours to come up with your pick because they're pretty important picks. And then after that, we like to speed things up a little bit. So in the 3rd and the 4th round, we break it into AM and PM. And then for the 5th and the 6th round, because we haven't had these rounds before, and I think this might be the only year where we do have them, I even broke it down even further, put morning, afternoon, and evening. Now to help you guys out for the time frames here, if it's rounds 2 and 3, AM officially goes from midnight till noon, and PM goes from noon until midnight. So you have that window of time to enter your pick. If you exceed that window of time, the pick is forfeited, which just means you can't pick, and then it becomes the next person's turn. And rounds 5 and 6 are a little bit more pressure, I think, because I broke them into these tighter windows. So 4 a.m. to noon is your morning time one, afternoon is noon to 8 p.m., and then evening is 8 p.m. to midnight. And that's, sorry, I know that might not work great for everybody, but hopefully by those rounds you're not overthinking them too much, and you can just find a couple minutes within those time frames to punch in a guy that you might be taking a flyer on and seeing how it goes. And then I also wanted to, while we're down here doing tabs, I just want to introduce the new division. So we have more teams, so I decided to make 3 divisions of 4. And I tried to keep the division somewhat intact while balancing the current power of the league, knowing that things could always change. So I tried to be as fair as I could here, but you can see what the divisions are. And if you could check that out on your own. If anyone has a real strong feeling like that, I do not belong in this division or something, please let me know. This isn't exactly set in stone yet, but I think it's probably going to be the best distribution that I could come up with. I did spend probably more time than I wanted to thinking about it and playing around with different configurations. I think this is going to work out the best, not just for now, but for long term in the league. So, guys, as far as trading goes, if you're new to this, or if you just need a reminder, people who are open to trading have put information over here on the sheet, and they've also put some ways to reach them. So that means you could email them, or you could text them at those numbers. And if you guys look over there, if you're like, well, wait a minute, that is not the email I want to use, or I don't even check email. I only want my number on there, or whatever. Just make sure you update it so that people aren't, texting you or sending you messages to emails that you don't check. And then, like I put this on there for Chris because I know Chris usually communicates through Yahoo Messenger. A lot more of you guys are doing that, so you can just put that on there. People know how to access it. I also want to say, if you don't want to be bothered or minimally, you can just put something on there like, I don't want to speak for anybody. Let's just pretend we had somebody in our league named Brian. You could just put like, no, or barely ever, or something, because I think it's been difficult, I think, for people who are more active with trading to know if you are okay being offered a trade or not, or if you only want to be offered like one trade per week or something. You don't want to go do a lot of back and forth. So I think anyone can go over there and clarify what you would like in terms of your trading preferences, or how engaged you want to be with this, because I completely respect that some people have more fun with the trading aspect, and other people might not have as much fun with that. So you can put that on there if you don't want to be bothered, or what have you. Or if you're fine with it, just leave it alone. It's fine. Just letting people know how to reach you, though, can be helpful, so that they can get a hold of you if there's a pick that they want or a player that they want. All right, last thing, down here, when we get to rounds 5 and 6, I don't really know. And we have 12 teams now, and I just don't know what the talent level is going to be. I mean, you can pick any player available to you in the league, so they can also be current NFL players. But I just wanted to throw this out. If you get to this place and you're like, I'm just not, I'm pretty much done. Like I did 4 rounds. I have the players I want, and I just want to be done. Then you can just type that into the cell. And all I would ask, like, if let's go with Jesse again. Let's say Jesse gets these rounds and he's like, I have the players I want. I don't want to even do this. You could just do this and this. And that way, nobody's really waiting for you, or that we're just kind of aware of the fact that you're not drafting, and that, I won't feel compelled to remind you if it's getting close to your deadline. Hey, make sure you make a pick. We'll just know that you're all finished. Last thing, if you guys want to figure out, how many players you should draft or could draft, or that kind of thing, you can always take a look at this. This sheet is helpful for that. So I'm going to go back to like my team and show you what I figured out. We have 32 roster positions on our team, and I counted what I had here versus what I lost, and I realized that right now I have 26 players. That's what I have available to me, based on who was taken and who I have listed here. So, doing the very simple math here, if we have 32 roster spots, I can afford to take 6 players. So we have a 6-round draft this year, so I can afford to take a player in every round if I have 1 pick per round, which I don't exactly. But I could afford to, hypothetically, take a player in each round, and I wouldn't have to cut anybody when we get to our cuts post-draft. So that might just help you figure out. So, for example, like, I'm only bringing that up because if, like, let's say Jesse didn't do the math, and he could take, he's down 7 players, and he writes done and done because he doesn't really want to bother with it. He might have been better off selecting players, because all he's going to be able to do is that once the season starts, he's going to have some empty spots on his roster. He's going to have to rely on free agency to fill those. So, maybe taking a look at how many players you have left on your team, because it's an atypical year because of the expansion draft. So that might help you strategize a bit. Good luck, everybody. Have fun. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy drafting.